and welcome to Awakening Through Love, the podcast. My name's Rod Gordon.
And my name's Martina Hughes. And today's topic we're diving into is daily practice. Now, you might feel you have an understanding of daily practice, you might have experienced daily practice, but we want to tease apart here what are the benefits of daily practice for your life individually, also as within a relationship, but also what's the benefits of daily practice for cultivating the life you desire to have. So that kind of gives us a bit of an overview of where we might go. Is there anything you'd like to add to what I've said?
No.
Okay, excellent. So let's talk a little about each of our individual journeys with daily practice. Would you like to start first? Would you prefer me to go first?
I have no preference.
Okay, cool. I'll jump in then. So I, for many years, understood the value of daily practice and wanted to have a daily practice. And I would start, be like, do some meditation, do some movement, feel really good, and then stop. No, now I'll have a journaling practice. Okay, I'll do journaling every day. Feel really good for a while and then stop. So it was always this stop-start experience. It was like I knew how it felt beneficial, but for some reason I struggled to hold the consistency and the ongoing commitment of it. And what really changed that for me was when Rod committed to a daily practice, and he'll share about his commitment, but when Rod committed, and then I was like, oh, I don't want to get left behind here. If he's doing it every day, I'm going to do it every day. And I'm not sure, that's probably around 5 years ago now. I'm a bit hazy on that, but that commitment to daily practice, both personal daily practice and daily practice with Rod, is the number one thing for healing, growth, transformation, cultivating the life I want to live, aligning who I'm being, how I'm living to my highest values, to really be the woman I want to be. I know that if I wasn't doing daily practice, I would feel less than who I want to be. So I'm just going to pause there so we can hear from Rod about his journey with committing to daily practice.
I think for me, one of the strongest things that came up was like, if I'm not practicing to become the person I want to be, can I ever become that person?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was no.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything in life requires us to train and practice to become something, whether it's an accountant, a lawyer, a hairdresser, a tradie, doesn't matter. You've got to go and practice. And we practice day in and day out until we become qualified. And so for me, like if I wanted to change and become a different person, to become a different man, it's like, how do I get there if I'm not training? I'm not practicing to become that. Like, how do I become less reactive? How do I become less, emotionally reactive? How do I be different to how I'm being today, tomorrow? How do I do that? And it was really clear the only way for me to do that was to practice. And I remember one of my teachers saying at some point that the fastest way to cultivate alpha or masculine qualities, the qualities of presence, consciousness, awareness, stillness, silence, equanimity, love, generosity, trust, trustability, all these qualities, the fastest, most effective way to cultivate that was meditation. And so my meditation practice in the beginning was very on and off. And I thought, like, being like someone with ADHD and crazy hyperactive with ridiculous amounts of energy, getting me to sit still and meditate, for me, I experience that as some form of torture. And so my relationship to it was very stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, because I thought, like, all I ever noticed when I sat down to meditate was the amount of thoughts that came up. And one of my teachers pointed out one day, he's like, yeah, that's good meditation. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, if I notice, he said, if you notice that you're thinking, that is meditation. You notice that you're thinking, you come back to being present. Notice that you're thinking, I caught that, cool. Come back to being present. And so noticing the thoughts is actually good meditation. Having an empty mind, there's no, like, that's great if you can do that. But if that's not available to you, then that's fine. But the mind doesn't become still by not meditating. The mind becomes still because we notice that we're thinking and we stop. Notice that we're thinking and we stop. So once I've done that hundreds of times a day, and practice and practice and practice, eventually the gap between thinking and not thinking gets longer. And in that space is like peace and freedom. So really inspiring for me as a man to start to feel. It took 3 to 6 months, I think. Like, my ADHD was so strong. I used to do this breath counting meditation. It was really simple. It's like, in is 1, out is 2. In is 3, out is 4. In is 5, out is 4. In is 3, out is 2. In is 1. So you just count from 1 to 5 and then back through. I could not get to 5 without getting lost in thought. Like, just the first round, like, in is 1. Oh, that's cool. Oh, wow. Oh, the birds. Yeah, that's nice. It's like, choo. Sometimes I would literally get 1 and then my mind was off. And so after, I can't remember, it was 3 or 6 months, but I think it was around the 3 months, I could actually go up and down once without losing thought. I was so excited I got through once. I just started thinking about how good it was.
Let's have some celebratory thoughts.
Exactly. I had some celebratory thoughts. Totally ruined it. And then after 6 months, what I could do is I could do that for like 5-10 minutes. Can't remember which is one of those two. I could go up and down and up and down. And then, like, after a year, I remember one time I thought, I'm going to see how long I can do this for. And it got to an hour and I was just like, well, I've really got stuff to do. I've just got to go. And so I could just not lose get lost in the stream of thoughts. And so, like, having that experience inspired me to want to experience it more. But then you also noticed that I was changing and there was less conflict in our relationship. I was feeling more peaceful inward. There was less emotional ups and downs. So life started to stabilize in a way that it never had before. I found that I wasn't reacting emotionally the way I had in the past. So there was this sense of that something would happen, I'd feel triggered and I'd be like, oh, that's uncomfortable. And I'd be able to notice it just long enough so that I wouldn't react to it. Whereas before, the reaction happened so quickly, I wouldn't catch it until I was halfway through or I'd finished. I was like, oh shit, I just reacted. And so this spaciousness that meditation brought put a lot of peace and tranquility and openness, availability, awareness started to come online really much stronger than it ever had before. And in many ways that became the fuel. Like, I know if I didn't meditate in the morning, I would really notice it. Like, if I missed it, I'd meditate at lunchtime or at dinner time. Like, I'd missed it. My whole day was totally different. But I hadn't practiced being the man that I wanted to be. And so it always felt like something was missing then. And so nowadays I don't miss days of meditation and I allow my body to constantly grow through that experience, my awareness, but my body's totally changed.
Yeah. I have a question before you continue on. You referenced experiencing peace and freedom. And I'm not sure if people watching will have seen it, but I saw it from this angle, is that when you said peace and freedom, there was like this beautiful smile on your face. And I'd love for you to explain, because a lot of men crave peace and freedom. And I know that you experience peace and freedom on a regular basis. So can you explain the connection between the meditation and the peace and the freedom, and why that's valuable as a man?
Yeah. There's a strong craving in a man for peace and freedom. Ask any man. Should get a pretty clear answer. Well, freedom doesn't come from the changing of our external circumstances. Freedom is the liberation from from constraint. That's what it's, that moment where we're released. So something opens. And so to find freedom and peace, then we need to be comfortable. In some ways we need to learn to be comfortable in the chaos, because life will always be chaotic to some extent. There'll always be a problem. There'll always be something wrong, or a bill we have to pay, or something we have to do that we don't want to. There'll always be an irritation. So if we rely on our sense of peace or freedom coming from the external situations relaxing in some way, then we'll never have it. So peace and freedom needs to be something that we become. We become peaceful and we get free of getting pulled in. And part of that freedom, it comes from the liberation of the emotions, stored feelings, traumas that are stored in the body. Whenever, like, I don't know about for people listening, but for me, whenever I've got to the core of like an emotion, there's this intense release. It's just like, oh, that's it. That's the thing. And that feeling to me feels like freedom, because I'm liberated. So those stored emotions in the body, especially for men, feel like a constraint. It's like being full to the brim and there's just no space for anything else. There's that no space feeling. And it's that no space feeling that men get irritated by. It's so horrible in my body to feel like there's no space. So as the emotions are released from the body and the tension internally begins to unravel, I feel like when that's that recognition of an emotion or the getting to the root of something, that liberation starts to happen internally. And so the non-reactivity and spaciousness that meditation can provide means that in that moment, I feel the discomfort coming up in my body. It's not that I'm free of ever being irritated or angry or frustrated. That's not true at all. But I'll feel it come up in my body and I'll be like, okay, there's emotion alive in my body right now. I'm going to allow it to be there. I'm not going to resist it or fight it or want it to be different. That'll torture a person. So allow the discomfort of that sensation to be there, because I have the spaciousness in my mind to feel it instead of react to it. So if I feel fear and sadness and discomfort, my habitual impulse is to react to that with anger. It's really common for a lot of men. Vulnerability, fear, sadness will emerge as anger. And so instead of reacting angrily, which I would argue anger is a reaction to an emotion more than it is a genuine feeling. But as I sit with the discomfort of those feelings, there is no desire to relax. There's freedom in that. There's nothing I have to do other than allow that sensation to be there. And the peacefulness comes not from the freedom of ups and downs of life so much as that I'm free of the reactions and the chaos that they cause. Because my reaction to the feeling or the moment or whatever's happening is usually what creates the problem. It's not whatever it is that I'm feeling.
Beautiful, beautiful description. And I know that how many men struggle with feeling trapped or constricted in life somehow. So for them to hear you speak to that is really powerful.
Well, usually men will feel trapped or constrained in the front of their woman's emotions. So the partner will come to them with some kind of emotional charge running in her body. The first thing that pops up in a man's body is get out of here. It's just like there's a consuming quality to emotional experiences. So the feeling for me in my body, like, is when a woman's come at me with her emotions, is that I'm going to be consumed, that something's going to evaporate and die. But it's also true of our own emotions internally. So if we can do our own internal work and liberate those emotions and learn how to take those emotional experiences that we experience as traumas or wounds or whatever, and we can then feel those, but then actually turn them into gifts of love, that's when those cycles become complete. And that can only happen if we have the space in our body to actually feel what's happening in the moment before we react, because the reaction changes everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to share a little from my perspective of when I first started daily practice. Finding the time was actually really, really difficult. It was at a time when Rod was significantly unwell. It was a period of time where I was working on the business solo, but I was managing our house and our life largely solo because Rod's capacity was so limited. And it'd get to 9 o'clock at night, sometimes even 9:30. I'd be like, I have not done that daily practice I've committed to. So I'd go into the other room and I'd meditate for 10 minutes, and it'd be hard as anything because I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm carrying all these things. But I'd meditate for 10 minutes and then I would move my body for 15 minutes. And that movement in many ways was a lifesaver for me. It was a game changer at that moment in time because there was so much pressure I was experiencing from the way that our life was at the time, that when I moved, I could be like, sometimes I'd cry and sometimes I'd roar and sometimes I'd just feel helpless and overwhelmed. But it meant that I knew every day there was a dedicated space for me to allow those feelings through my body to come out of the busy kind of doing mode and just be with my feelings. So at that point in time, even though I was like squeezing the practice into the end of the day, I started to go, oh my God, this is a lifesaver. This is a game changer for me. And the more I felt it as valuable, the more I went, oh, I'm really going to figure out how to put this into the morning. I'm going to change my schedule and change things around to be able to do this in the morning. And then when I started to do it in the morning, I was like, oh, I get to be this person all day who has space and feelings and things can move more easily, and I don't get stuck as much and I don't freeze as much and I don't blame. And it's like there was much more allowing of my feelings, but also there was much more love. I was then able to feel my own love because everything wasn't getting bottled and jammed up inside of me, because there was a space for releasing and moving what needed to be released and moved. And so I know that so many people that we work with say, I don't have time to practice. And I understand, and I feel like the way we've created our lives right now, we have quite a bit of luxury of time. But if there's one thing that creates more love, more spaciousness, more connection, more flow in life, it's daily practice. It's the most valuable thing I've experienced and that I know. So that's my little bit of encouragement for anybody who's going, I don't have time. It will actually help you make more time.
Yeah. In many ways, I think that I don't have time is an excuse. And when I say that, it's not like a blaming kind of thing, but it's that there's such a habit in our culture to be busy,
Mm.
and that we think that that's important somehow, or that we or our kids or everyone needs to do all these different things. And the truth is, like, doing all those things is pointing our attention to the external and looking for some kind of validation or something to change internally, and it doesn't.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And so in many ways it's awareness around boundaries, around what is the most important thing for me, you, our family, whatever, to be doing, and what should be done. And I think people often prioritize those things through what they want. And what we want is a massive hindrance to the quality of our life. I know there's a strong belief out there that if we get what we want, we'll be happy. But as far as I'm aware, that's not true. It's not true in my life, and it's not true in people I work with's lives. At some point, the seeking of what we want comes a realization that there is no end to what we want. We'll always want something more. We'll always want something different. And we think that what we want means something. And in my experience, what I've learned is that it doesn't mean what I thought it meant. And so I got real curious about that, because every day I wake up, I'm like, I don't want to meditate. I don't want to get in the ice bath. I want to go and do something. I want to do something exciting or that feels good. And if I don't do that meditation, I will feel like a bag of shit for the day. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And so at some point, the realization for me was that if I follow the impulse of what I want, I'll get what I've always had. It won't be any different. But the part of me that wants to be a good man, a great man, you know, a leader, a facilitator, a space holder, a lover, a partner, I'm a better version of that when I meditate. So what I had to do was realize that getting what I wanted didn't bring any lasting peace or happiness or freedom at all. But doing what it takes to cultivate a sense of freedom and peace did. And so the meditation will give me that sense of freedom and spaciousness, availability of love. I'm more present, I'm more open. And I love that. And there is no other way to get there. Yeah. So if I want to be that, have more of that, I have to do this thing. And it's really hard. Like I struggle to get through to people the part about what we want, because it feels like to me, like, even there's like when I had my son, like, you know, my son's upset. What is it that you want? What is it that you want? And there's this sense that, you know, giving that child what they want will stop them from doing whatever's irritating us. But for me as the child, you know, there's this sense, this belief came online that if I get what I want, I'll be happy. Because when I'm upset, mum and dad look for what I want so that I'm happy. And it's almost like it just runs in the background of my nervous system, that getting what I want makes me happy. And it's been so confronting to actually change that script, to change that story in my mind, that, you know, and it's really clear in business. Like, we don't just go to work and do whatever we want. We do what we need to do to get the task or the job done. You know, if you're making sales, you can't just go up to a client and go, well, you're a dick. I don't like you at all. We've got to show up to them and be like, what is it that you need? What do you want? What do I have to do to get this across the line? So it's really clear in other domains, but it's not clear in our personal and intimate lives. And, you know, it's quite common. I'm going to try this a different way and see how it goes. It's really common in our culture. You'll notice, like, especially young men, like, quite often don't want relationships. Their impulse is they want to sleep around. Now, how does that feel in your body? Gross? Indulgent?
Personally, just neutral on it.
Neutral?
But, yeah.
Well, that impulse or that desire to go and sleep with all those women, it doesn't actually ever get us anywhere as men. It doesn't change anything. In fact, quite often people will lose respect for us.
Yeah.
Because what we're doing is we're indulging in our desire with no care for the impact. Maybe some care, but still maybe not recognizing the damage, the hurt, or the pain that does, that indulging and chasing that desire, chasing the I want. So it's not valuable there in our culture. And in that external, it's an external representation of how we actually function as humans internally. That chasing what we won't respect ourselves, we won't love ourselves, we cause harm that we don't realize that we're causing internally to ourselves. So it's until we learn to have equanimity with our desire of what we want, to realize, I really would love to go and do X, Y, Z. And I actually need to make space for this first, for this meditation practice, to actually come into my body, to become present, and then take that gift of presence and depth into whatever it is that I want to do, to actually slow down my body, slow down life, and just be available for it rather than trying to push or strive. So that relationship to desire has a massive, what I see, profound impact on people's relationship to any kind of meditation or daily practice. Whereas the daily practice is purely practicing becoming the person that we want to be. And can we become the person that we want to be if we don't practice becoming that?
Yeah. So then it's really, how do we align with our values, because our values are connected to the person we want to be, rather than chasing in the moment gratification. And that the place that's most apparent for me is that waking up in the morning and being like, oh, it's so cozy in the bed and I could just stay here and snuggle, and it's like that would be the gratification in the moment. But instead there's like, what am I going to choose? This being here, this snuggly, warm, cozy moment, am I going to choose this? Knowing that it'll throw my whole day out because I won't be showing up as the woman I want to be. So then I choose getting up, exercise, meditation, journaling, movement. I choose the practice, the routine, the experiences that align me to the version of Martina that I most want to be in the world.
Absolutely. And have my own experience of that. I too love that warm, snuggly, cuddly, especially right now it's winter here. But my first part of my morning practice is an ice bath. Getting up to go to the ice bath in winter, there is no part of me that wants to do it. I still stand in front of it and look at it and just like hope that this could be different. But getting into it is just, I have so much resistance. I don't allow that to mean anything. I just hit the button and step in. But when I get out of that ice bath, I feel amazing. And the days that I don't do it, I suffer. It's just my day is not as good. It's not as bright. It's not as effervescent. Like the ice bath is so good for learning like non-reactivity, especially to my own emotions and feelings and resistances. Like to get into that thing, the discomfort's so intense that to be able to relax into the discomfort is very much the practice of being with my own emotions and discomforts and the challenges that arise in life. It's usually easier in life than it is in the ice bath. And that's, I'll ice bath and then I'll do some movement and then I'll do meditation. And so I know for me, there's a lot of resistance, but I also know that resistance doesn't mean anything. I'm just avoiding the discomfort of the discipline or the practice or whatever it is that I'm creating. And if I continue to avoid that, I will suffer.
Yeah. And the curious thing that comes online for me is that it's like, oh, I actually really enjoy these things I do each morning. Like once I'm out of the bed and I'm like, oh, I'm on my walk and yes, it's cold, but I have warm clothes on. It's cold and there's nobody around, but oh, the air's so fresh and beautiful. And so, and then when I get home and I move into practice, it's like, oh yeah, this is the space for me to be with all of what's here and present in my body. So, yeah, it becomes this beautiful kind of curious experience of like, why did I even resist this? Because when I'm in it and doing it, it just feels So good.
I have the exact same experience.
Mm-mm.
Even in the ice bath, once I'm in and like, soon as I get in, I'm like, oh, yes. Like a yes literally comes out of my body. As soon as I step in, I actually say yes out loud. And once I'm in the meditation, it's just like, and the bell goes off to finish. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm not stopping now. And, I could have been in such a rush before that. I'm going to just do 5 minutes, I'm just going to do 10 minutes. And I'll end up sitting there for 40 minutes meditating simply for the joy. But I have the same experience, massive resistance to beginning. Once I'm doing it, can't even understand why I would have resisted it in the first place. That experience still hasn't changed.
Yeah,
it's fascinating. I actually don't understand it, but I know that it happens.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't mean anything.
And one of the things that I feel supports me is having the structure that you and I have created in our lives, because the structure, even though there are times when I want to resist it, like it seems like there's something just about resisting structure that's like, oh yeah, I'm going to resist the structure. But then the structure actually ends up being liberating because it creates so much flow.
Exactly. And that's the thing I work with a lot with men, is that structure creates flow. If you want to go with the flow, you need a structure, because with no structure, there's no flow. Yeah. But I think like there's something magical about being in a meditation practice that just feels divine.
Yes.
Yeah. And that feeling that I come out of that meditation with, it's just so beautiful. I just can't imagine why I would resist. But I know tonight when I go to bed, I'm going to be thinking, I can't wait to get up in the morning and meditate. Can't wait to do my ice bath and my movement. I'm so excited. And I know that when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to be like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And it happens every day. It's baffling. But the important thing, I guess, that I've learned is that resistance doesn't mean anything. Like, yeah, I fear getting in the ice bath because I fear the discomfort. I fear the feelings that it brings up that's stored in the body. But I know not to place any value on those thoughts or those beliefs. They're just what happens in the face of having, a structure and a meditation practice. Yeah.
One thing you made reference to was feeling your body changing as a result of practice. Can you speak more to that?
In terms of meditation?
Yeah.
Or ice bath, because they're slightly different.
Well, meditation specifically, because as much as you love your ice bath, it's not really the thing we're recommending to our clients.
Are we? Don't tell some of the men I work with, because that has been recommended and they don't love me for it.
Yeah, but if we were to give people the beginning of daily practice, I would say it's meditation for men and movement for women.
Yeah, true. So like I think it's what we spoke about earlier in the podcast in terms of the spaciousness and the sense of freedom. So the sense of relaxation that's in my body. Like we spoke about how structure creates flow. The structure of meditation creates ease and flow in my day, because I'm not reactive. I'm not going into it tense, wound up, stressed. Like my body's relaxed, my body's soft. It's responsive and available, but it's not tense and reactive. It's a big difference. So if I'm going into my day more relaxed, more available, more present, then how people respond to me is different. Like if you've ever met someone in the street who's really tense and just ready to react, do you know what I mean when I say that? Like have that feeling. Yeah, well, sometimes I'm that person. And so what I realized is that if I meditate, I go into my day soft and relaxed, but people respond to that. They see it and they go, oh, like they can relax in the face of that, which means every interaction I have throughout the day is different because I meditated in the morning. Whereas if I go into my day and I don't meditate, and even if I start getting anxious about that, I didn't meditate, oh no. Like even that straight there, I can feel the front of my body tighten slightly. Even my voice changed when I said that. But then every person that I interact with throughout the day is going to feel that tension in my body.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to feel that if I'm ready to react or if I'm, not present.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates a different response in their body. Now our interaction together is completely different to what it was if I was relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
And so this has a profound impact on intimate relationship. If I show up to you tense and stressed and ready to react,
yeah, I just contracted even at the suggestion of it. I could feel my body begin to freeze and go, uh-oh, what have I done wrong?
Yeah, not safe.
Yeah.
Whereas if I show up to you and I'm relaxed, I'm present, my body's soft, I feel peaceful and free, like, yeah.
The opposite, the front of my body opens. It's like,
Yeah. So if I show up to you and I'm not triggering the crap out of you with my tension in my body, you're going to react very different to me. Our day is going to look real different. But then if we have both partners who are doing a practice, who are showing up in a state of, to be in a state of peace and freedom is to be in a state of love.
Yes.
To show up to the, relationship open and flowing with your feelings and responsive is an act of love. So we're showing up to each other, showing up to life from a state of love and presence rather than a state of stress and reactivity. So they create very different experiences throughout the day. And so that's why meditation changes the quality of our life so much, is because every experience we have with another person changes because of the state of our being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. And what I notice with as I do my movement practice, it's like that feminine embodiment of sound, feeling, expression, allowing everything to move through me. There's a sense of I'm literally cultivating more love, because there's a sense that as I allow what's here to move through, then there's more love for you, for being of service to our clients, for what we're creating together. But there's a sense of then I feel full because, and also a sense of I know how to cultivate love here, and I feel full in a really beautiful, delicious way that then has me be generous and open and loving as I move through the rest of the day.
Yeah, and in some ways you're highlighting some really important pieces there. And so we haven't shared the difference between an alpha and an omega practice, or a masculine and a feminine practice. We've spoken about daily practice, but primarily through the lens of meditation. Whereas in our work, we actually recommend movement and meditation. Movement being more omega or feminine, masculine being more, or alpha or masculine being more stillness and silence. And even then you spoke to that desire to feel full, which is a really common omega feminine experience, the desire to be full. There's no part of me that wants to be full. Wants to be empty. I want to feel nothing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I want to feel love.
Yeah, and she wants to feel love and full. So you'll notice the polarity, the opposite, the reciprocal. My desire to be empty and spacious makes space for her desire to be full. It's how the union works. The opposites are quite beautiful. As long as I'm aware to love the part of her that wants to be full, not judge it or make it wrong because she's not empty, and she's not judging or making it wrong that my desire is to be empty and feel nothing, and that I should be full and feeling everything. And so when we can learn to love the differences, we can make space for each other as whole beings. And, don't get me wrong, I have a huge omega feminine capacity and desire for feeling and expression and vitality and to be alive and to feel my feelings. There's no part of me that wants to avoid any of that. But at the same time, the core pull is towards the nothingness. But if I spend too much time there, I get disconnected and I can disappear into the ether, to become disconnected from my body, disconnected from the relationship. And Martina feels that immediately. I get a message through her body, not a text. But also in that, my life becomes really dry and barren and empty. So if I detach from my emotional experience and that emotional part of me, then I lose something as well. So it's like, how do I be empty and feel nothingness at the same time as allow all of my feelings to be available and online for them to just move through me as they want to move? Because feelings want to move, they don't want to stay stagnant. So how do I facilitate that process where I allow the fullness and the richness of my own emotional experience without getting tangled in it and caught in it, but allow my whole body to feel every vibration of the feeling until it naturally wants to move, you know? Whereas, and that it's a paradox, but the paradox, it can create a freeze in the mind. But when it's practiced through the body, it collapses in on itself. When we reconcile the differences, the duality of both, and it becomes one. So when I allow the fullness of my feelings and to be in that spaciousness at the same time, it collapses that paradox and I can do both. Because guaranteed, the moment you sit down and meditate, your mind's going to go crazy. All your feelings are going to come rushing to the surface, because as soon as there's space and openness, or in that space, it gives birth to something, gives birth to life, to feelings, emotions. The feminine will want to rise within us. Even as men, that amiga quality will want to emerge as soon as we're still and silent. And we should allow that and feel that fully, but without reacting to it. It's very different practice. Whereas the amiga impulse is to emerge into and become the sensations and to allow the body to be liberated in that way.
Very much a sense of immersing into the sensations, immersing into the pleasure, and then immersing into all the feelings. It's like as we immerse into the body, there's unlocking, there's unraveling, there's opening, there's softening. So it's very much in as the amiga feminine experience, to be able to liberate ourselves from the inside by allowing space for what's there in our body. And not sometimes when I work with women, let's say if they want to move towards more pleasure, sometimes we have to go towards like, well, if there's a resistance or a block or something in the way of pleasure, what's the emotion? Let's go to the emotion that's presenting and let that breathe and move and sound. And then what's underneath that? Let's go to the next emotion. Breathe and move and sound and allow. And it's actually as these emotions have space to move that then it's like, I can enjoy, actually I can feel pleasure and sadness at the same time. In fact, sadness is quite beautiful. And I can feel pain, but also some kind of bubbling release as I'm feeling the pain. So feeling our feelings, connecting to our body from our amiga or feminine, there is literally a desire to feel it all. Like even whether it's rage or grief or pain, there's a place where allowing it can also create ecstasy in the midst of some of the most typically considered uncomfortable feelings. When we surrender, when we allow, that can become ecstasy.
Yeah. And it takes a high level of emotional awareness to get to those places, but it's part of the reason I think people get locked in them. If you know friends that are just habitually sad, habitually scared, habitually feeling something, it's an intoxicating and delicious collapse that happens when people, you know, collapse into grief, collapse into sadness, collapse into fear, that becoming and immersing in it. It's almost delicious. It's like indulging in too much chocolate. There's something really beautiful about it. But if we can catch ourselves before that collapse, we open ourselves up to what Martina's talking about, where we notice the nuance available in sadness or grief or fear. There's a lot of really beautiful sensations. And what I've found is that the more I'm willing to open into feeling those, and they don't feel like pleasure at the time, let me just be really clear about that, can feel fear and discomfort and or humiliation, shame, vulnerability, like these things can be really intense. But if we can allow ourselves to sit with the feelings long enough, then we can notice the nuance. And sometimes it feels like that within each feeling, all the feelings are present.
Mm-hmm.
It's like within sadness, there's love, there's beauty, there's fear, there's deliciousness, even though there's this hurt and this pain. The same, like I've had that with all the feelings. Yeah. But we have to allow ourselves to stay in the feelings long enough, because what's taught commonly is to react to our feelings. So if we're not reacting to our feelings, what are we doing? And so feeling them. And how do we feel the feeling? We allow the sensation to be there. If you allow that sensation to be there long enough, it can take us on a journey. And that's what Martina spoke to about going under, going under, going under. If I feel the sadness and the hurt and the pain at first, I feel it long enough, it'll move and something else will be revealed. And it's like, oh, there's tenderness there. I feel that. That's merged, that's gone, it's moving. Vulnerability. Vulnerability is present. Oh my God. The hurt, the pain. The openness. The deliciousness. The freedom. Oh no, the free fall. The surrender. Like all these things become available the longer that we can sit with the feelings and allow them to be there. We actually get to feel, and that will take us on its own journey. And through that, often to a state of completion, which is rare.
Yeah. And there'll be different times when I experiment in different ways with movement, because there are times when what's most present and alive is using the movement practice as a way to excavate past emotions. There are other times where I'm simply being present with feelings and sensations in my body, and then an emotion will pop up. There are other times where I might be specifically working with cultivating more pleasure or opening to a sense of wildness, or how do I open to feeling more love? And then in the process of working with those energies, other things can pop and open and be released. So there's a variety of different ways to engage with, whether it's movement or meditation. There's a variety of different ways to engage with it, but it's always having that sense of, how do I feel after the practice? Am I being liberated? Do I feel more loving? Do I feel more alive, more connected? Am I more available for love, for intimacy?
Yeah, and I think that's the key measurement there is, do I feel more love? Because if there is a sense of openness and love at the end of practice, then being more love is always going to be rich.
Beautiful. Is there anything else you would like to add, or does that feel like we're coming to a close?
That feels good.
Yeah.
I feel like, there's not heaps to say, but I feel like there's been a lot said.
Yes.
And probably more than enough to digest.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you everyone for listening.
Or watching.
Or watching, yes. And if you would like any meditations or movement practices, we share lots and lots of those inside Intimacy Oasis. So you can check out what the Intimacy Oasis offer is on our website.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you so much.